Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Saturday the 13th of March, is it? Right, parts have arrived, so it's cylinder head time on the Lightning. So there's the head all prepared that we've seen in the previous two videos, now with all its studs inserted for carb and rocker box. Then we've got cylinder head bolts and the centre head bolt, cylinder head studs and nuts, washers. These nuts are, one set is for the rocker box, which is those four nuts plus the dome nuts. The dome nuts go on the two centre studs. Where are we? That one and that one, with their washers, and the other nuts are for carb mounting with their washers too. You'll notice I've got the carb here, and that's because once we've got the head on, then it'll be nice just to put the carb on this side and just to check that out. That's the carb rubber to connect the carb at the top here with the air filter side panel housing. And with respect to these rubbers, actually the carb end, there's no clip, Jubilee type clip at that end. It's purely a push on fit, but not onto the carburetor itself, it's onto a ring that you screw on to the carburetor at that end. And all I've done to create that ring is just adapt the small flutes that you get with new carbs, cut it down, and the rubber fits over that very well. So it'll be nice just to see what it looks like when we put that on. And then of course head gasket. Now there's always a lot of talk on forums etc with respect to head gaskets, whether you should whether you need to anneal them. When I was in my youth, as a 19-year-old, I had a Lightning 650 then, a 1968 model, and I rebuilt that, and I was a member of the Manchester BSA Owners Club at the time, as I was at Salford Uni, and they always recommended to anneal and also put a light smearing of grease on either side of that gasket. So that's what we'll do first. Normally just heat it up. You can use the oven, but blowtorch is good enough until it oxidises all the way around, and then dump it into a bath of cold water that I've got ready in a bowl. So that's the first job we'll do, is we'll anneal this copper gasket. Okay, gasket annealed and lightly greased, and you can see it's attained that slightly oxidised look, even though it's been quenched. Next thing is to put the four outer studs on, and the way I'll do this is, as you can see, is I've got an old nut there as well as the new ones, and it's just double nutted, so we can then turn them all in. So I'll get those in, and then we'll be in a position to slot the head on. All studs in, really nice tight fit. I had to clean the threads slightly on a couple of them and lubricate, but they've all gone in very well, right up to the end of the thread. So now we can actually, I think, sit the head on at last. Right, the head's on over the studs, but it's got to come off again. So there's so little room to work with under the spine of the frame that firstly you've got to take the central studs out so they don't foul the frame. But now, having got the head on, you can get the two front central head bolts in, but you can't get the rear ones in because the frame is in the way. So you've got to take the head off, I think, and put the bolts through those holes So they're in there when you place the head over the studs. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right, progress. All the nuts and the bolts, head bolts are in and finger tight. However, slight problem, the two front ones here, although the same length as the back ones, they're tight and they're still probably about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch off seating on the washer. So I think they're too long. Easy enough to shorten them, but that's just a pain. But luckily the front ones we can get out without taking the head off. If it were the rear ones, we'd have to take the whole head off again. So that's just annoying, but anyway, we can do that. Other observations is that all these studs are the same length. The ones for the front though are a little on the short side, so we don't get a full nut. I haven't torqued it down yet, obviously, so we'll get a bit more on that, but I don't think that's right either, really. I'm going to live with it, but to me, let's have a quick look in the parts book. To me, they should have slightly longer studs in the front, because the studs are going through effectively another pair of fins. God, the bench looks like a damn mess at the moment because of all the trials and damn tribulations of this head. Anyway, let's have a quick look. So here we go. 16. Yes. 16 and 20. 26. Right. So the front studs are 3 3/4, and the rear studs 16, 2 13/16. So there's the problem. Think. It looks pretty neat. We'll have to see if we can torque them up. I'll ponder on that. Anyway, first thing is to get those two central front head bolts out and shorten them. I mean, that's the other thing I'd check as well, whether or not they should be a shorter bolt. So that's 12 and 13. No, they're all the same size. 4 1/16. 4. So the front and rear are the same size, and they are. But it's a bit strange that both of these front bolts stop at about the same place, and I'm not going to torque them anymore. So we'll take them out and have a look. Right, sorted. So I've not shortened these bolts. I've just used an extra thicker washer, and that's done the trick. And similarly, I've used thinner washers on these at the front, and certainly on the other side, not far off on this side, I've just about got a full nut. So I'm happy with that, and obviously the proof of the pudding will be in the torquing down. So everything, including that centre bolt there, is all sort of firmed up, but now we'll torque them down. So we'll need to just check the torque settings in the book. I think it's, what is it, J, is it? section J. Yeah. So, studs are only 5. Oh, that's studs in the barrel. 5. Cylinder barrel crankcase nuts, we've got those. Cylinder head bolts. (31 to 33). (31 to 33). Doesn't say anything about the cylinder head nuts. Oh yes, it does. There they are. Cylinder head nuts. Oh, 31 to 33. So it's all the same. 31. Right. Torque wrench at the settee. Click stop. I'm just going to do them £20 first, and then we'll take them up to 31. And I was always taught to start at the centre and then work out. So we'll go centre and then diagonals for the 4, and then out to the outside on diagonals 2. So I'll bring you back once I've got them up to 20. Okay, done. They all torqued up beautifully. Obviously with these nuts I can't get a torque wrench on those, so it's a bit of a estimation on pressure, etc., and also on number of turns between £20 to £31, which worked out about half a turn on each. But anyway, these I can assure you are very tight, and I've just about got a full nut now on there, and certainly have on the other side, so I'm pleased with that. That's all good to go. I'm just going to check that centre bolt again. I did start from the centre outwards, but I'm going to go back and just check that one again. We just want to make sure that's tight, because that's the weak point for blow-by. Right, good. Checked, all done. Looking good. Next stop, tappets and push rods. So we'll get those all lined up and I'll bring you back. Right, here's the 2 rocker spindles with the sequence of the washers. So from the blind end you have plain washer, spring, rocker, plain, then you have the central stub, then you have plain washer, rocker, spring, washer with a smaller bore for that end, then you have a mounting nub, then you have a spring washer before the nut on this end, and that's the same on both sides. So let's get cracking and get these in, just to thread them in gently. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, exhaust all in. Just got to tighten up now, but they're moving freely, and you can push them slightly backwards and forwards against the thrust springs. And I forgot to mention earlier that the exhaust rockers are different to the inlet rockers. They're not the same. So the exhaust rocker tappet arms are longer than the inlets. I don't know whether I can show you this well. There we go. Difficult to see, but there we go. You can see that they are shorter. So the shorter ones are inlet. So right, onwards. We'll onto the inlet next, and then after that we'll get the push rods in. Hi everyone, right, next morning, and rockers, push rods, tappets adjusted. So that's the top end done. I've turned the motor several times by the rotor nut on this side. Everything working as normal. Valve's not touching the head, and I've gone around and rechecked all the tappet clearances. 8 thou inlet, 10 thou exhaust. So all set to now seal the top end up, and we'll get the rocker box on. So the usual thing, got the gasket, but I'll put a thin smear of silicone either side of the gasket, and then we'll put the lid on at last. Right, all set to go. Gasket on, light smear of silicone on either side, and as you can see, given the top end a liberal dose of oil, and also thrown some oil down the pushrod tunnel as well to get a bit onto the cam. Right, now we'll get the lid on. Wish me luck, this is going to be tight. Okay, lid on. It was very tight, and actually what I had to do in the end was remove these two studs on this side to get the cover on, and then I had to double nut these to reinsert them, which is why they're a little bit proud, but they're very tight. Dome nuts in the middle. All done. Right, final piece in the jigsaw is going to be the head steady. Goes from these two mounting points here to that single mounting point over there, and as I've shown you previously, let me just show you, we've managed to find a second-hand one in the original factory paint, so you can see it's a little bit worse for wear in places, but considering that's original Dove Grey paint, then I'm happy with that. I've done a bit of touching up on it and put a liberal coat of polish on it as well, but I'm going to keep it original. I just like stuff like that. So let's 2 set screws to mount to the head, and then where is it? There it is. Nut and bolt to mount it to the frame. You can get pattern ones of these, but they're just flat plates, and they look rubbish. So we're going to put this one on. Right, I'll just get set up here and I'll get that installed on there, and I'll bring you back. Okay, job done. It was a bit of a game getting the bolt in the top of the head steady here against the frame. I've got the correct size and length of bolt, but there is no way you can thread the bolt from the top down, as it implies in the parts book. It's got to be from the bottom up. There's just not enough space there. So this is all been a bit tight, but we've got there in the end, and as you can probably tell, although I keep saying that I had a BSA 650 Lightning in my youth, you can tell it wasn't an oil in the frame, can't you? Because it's been a bit of a challenge all the way through. But anyway, we've got there, so we can almost state that subject to timing, etc., then the engine's done. So we'll end this episode there. Got there in the end. Again, never been straightforward, but we're there. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for interest, comments and subscriptions as usual. Next episode we'll concentrate on installing the other carb, and then we'll get the exhausts on, and then she'll look like a complete bike, and then we'll go up to the top and finish the wiring and get this all set up more completely. These tie wraps here are just temporary, obviously. 1 or 2 cables, and we're just about there. So that's all for now. Thanks very much again, everybody. See you again soon. Cheers, bye-bye.